Welcome back to the doctor's office. I am Dr. Kaori Knight, here to give you your proper diagnosis and prognosis in everything comics and comic book characters. And I do see that you are back from the last dose that I gave you for your medication for BSS. And for those of you who don't remember what BSS is boring storyline syndrome. And it still is not fatal. So let's just go ahead and give you a quick checkup. Eyes look great. Open your mouth. I see you're still suffering, but not as bad. So what I'm going to give you today comes in 2 doses. They are very, very strong. I'm going to go ahead and give you those side effects. And the main side effects that I'm worried about here is death in any form. Okay? That's whether it be suicide, cannibalism, or murder. We need you to be aware of that, okay? So this one is coming all the way from the Marvel Comics pharmacy, deep in the vault. It was created in 1995. So we're going pretty deep here. So why don't we go ahead, same deal as last time. I will explain each dose, and you will tell me if it is the right medication for you. You being back here, I think you enjoyed those 4 doses of Kingdom Come that you got last week. Perfect. Well, I'm here to give you another one. So let's go ahead and get into just what the doctor ordered. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into these 2 doses. Now, the medication that I'm going to be prescribing to you is Ruins from Marvel Comics Pharmacy. Now, again, death is a huge side effect. So, I need you to make sure that you are ready for this. Are you ready for this? All right. Well, then let's get started. So, ignore that. So, for this was created in 1995 by Warren Ellis, with the artwork being painted artwork by Teresa Nielsen, her husband, Cliff Nielsen, and Chris Moeller, who took over the last 17 pages of the 2nd issue. So this comes literally in just 2 books. And it is one of the darkest storylines, if not the darkest storyline from Marvel. It is a parody of the Marvel's comic that was a comic miniseries that was made by Alex Ross and Kurt Busiek. Just like the Marvel's miniseries, this does feature Phil Sheldon, as the Daily Bugle reporter, and he is the main character of the story. And this is a dystopian future, and this Earth is referred to as Earth 9591. So that's probably how I'm going to be referring to it just throughout the video. So just so you know, Earth 9591 is where we are exactly. So of course we start with Phil Sheldon, who again is a ex-worker for the Daily Bugle, and he's exploring this dystopian Marvel universe where he describes it as everything that can go wrong here will go wrong. So basically everything that created superheroes, whether they were born with the powers or experimented on, or whatever, what have you, an accident happened, they, instead of becoming superheroes, they were given these deformities and painful deaths, as we will see. And I do kind of just want to do a trigger warning for those who are easily queasy. The pictures that are going to be coming through are gross. So, just be warned. So in this world, the Avengers are part of this world, but they are radical secessionists who are battling against the United States government because they feel like the government is corrupt. And they are basically doing battle with President X. Right. So, they actually end up getting their last Quinjet blown up by a Patriot missile from President X. And We see that it kills Iron Man, Ant-Man, Wasp, and Thor's hammer is also there, so we're just going to assume that Thor was also killed during this missile strike. And we do kind of also get a glimpse into who is on this Avengers team, and Captain America also gets killed as well. So we have Tony Stark, Iron Man. He's also referred to as the man with the iron mask. He is a serial killer on this earth. And Captain America is a cannibal, and he has passed his cannibalism on to others. And it didn't really say too much about Hank Pym, Thor, and Wasp. It didn't say too much about them. And then Doctor Strange is the one who formed the Avengers. He was going to do it, had the idea, went to Tony Stark, and then Tony Stark and Doctor Strange brought Captain America on. But mysteriously enough, Doctor Strange was not on that plane. Also on this Avengers team is Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch. So, you know, the normal people who would usually be on the Avengers team. As he continues forward, he comes across James Howlett. And of course, if you don't know who James Howlett is, that is Wolverine. And he's in a bar, and his skin is melting off of his body due to the toxicity of his adamantium bone structure. So he is decaying and dying right there in the bar. And he kind of just walks away. Phil just kind of just like, oh shit, and just like leaves. He then ends up traveling to a Kree internment camp, which is in Nevada, and he speaks to Mar-Vell. Mind you, the Kree are in this internment camp and they're all dying of cancer, which actually ties into Captain Mar-Vell, because I do believe he is one of the only comic book characters to die and stay dead of a regular ass disease. So if ever you do see, and this is just something for you guys, if ever you do see Captain Mar-Vell in a book, it is most likely a flashback or a different Earth or something like that, because main 616, Captain Mar-Vell is dead, and it was because of cancer. Now, he talks to Phil about why the Kree invasion actually failed. And it failed because of the Silver Surfer, but not in the way that you would think it failed because of the Silver Surfer. So they encountered the Silver Surfer, who, as you should know, if you don't know, it's fine, has the power cosmic. That's the source of his power. And he was actually going insane and wanted to be able to breathe again, because the Herald of Galactus starts off as human before they are transformed. So, you know, he started off as human, being able to breathe air and all that, and he was transformed into the Silver Surfer. Okay, so he was going absolutely insane due to the power cosmic, and he wanted to breathe again. So he began tearing open his entire body, chest, pulling out his intestines, pulling out his organs, all that stuff. And he's out there, and his body ends up falling to Earth. But because Power Cosmic is so strong, it was interfering with the Kree ship's cloaking device, and the humans saw them, so they were able to prevent an invasion from happening, attack them, kill a lot of the Kree, and then imprison the rest of them in this internment camp. Mind you, he is doing research for a book, so he's literally just writing all of this shit down in all of his papers. So after his interview with Captain Mar-Vell, he ends up going to Washington, D.C. to meet with Nick Fury. And when he meets up with Nick Fury attacks him and almost shoots him, thinking that he is like a political reporter, because he says that he was proved to be clean and that he has absolutely nothing to do with whatever happened with the Avengers. It wasn't him, and that Captain America is the one who introduced him to cannibalism. I didn't ask you that. I didn't want to know that. And that is gross. That is disgusting. In the midst of their conversation, they are approached by Jean Grey, who at this point in time is a prostitute. And she offers herself to the two of them for $20. And what does Nick Fury do? He shoots her point blank, execution style, in the face, between the eyes and the forehead. And He then says that he just needs to take a little nap. Now, while after he shoots her, Phil is just like, excuse me? Like, what the hell was that? And Nick is just like, I really just need to take a nap. I need to rest. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. And I need to take a small nap. And Phil's like, I completely and totally understand. And then Nick Fury shoots himself in the face. Yeah. Now, obviously, he is traumatized by this because he quite literally just witnessed a murder-suicide occur in front of him. And it was almost instantaneously, like, no hesitation whatsoever. And after his encounter with Nick Fury, he decides to go to Chicago, Illinois, and interview Rick Jones. And Rick Jones is actually a morphine addict at this point in time, and a fellow addict that he's also with is Marlo Chandler. And they try to tell him the story of Bruce Banner and how Bruce Banner had once saved him from the gamma radiation that turned Bruce Banner into the Hulk. When it comes to Bruce Banner, again, he had saved Rick Jones from the gamma radiation. When it turned him into the Hulk, he was actually covered in like gamma radiation filled pulsating tumors, which is really gross, as you can see. And after this interview, Phil left, went outside of the apartment, and ended up tripping over a dead body. Who did that dead body belong to? The Punisher. And so he's basically like begging for life to let him continue so that he could get this story out so that everybody knew like the state of things at this point in time. So moving on to issue 2. Issue 1 was actually called Men on Fire. Issue 2 is called Women in Flight. I was calling issue 1 Heaven Abandoned, with me also calling issue 2 Hell is Here, because that's essentially what is happening. So while he is actually sitting on a plane, he's sitting next to Raven Darkholm, and if you don't know who that is, it's Mystique. And she is suffering from dissociative identity disorder because of all the personalities and everything she absorbed while she was using her shape-shifting powers. And because she has stopped taking the medication she was given, she is shape-shifting uncontrollably and against her will up until a point where she ends up basically like melting and dying in the seat. And like her body is taken away by authorities. And while they're trying to take her body away, they bump into a man named Max Eisenhart. And if you don't know who that is Magneto. And he has like a device that nullifies his magnetic powers. They bump into it and they mess it up, and it causes everything that is metal to be, basically because he is now magnetized again, it comes towards him, and all of these objects kill him. They kill other innocent people, as well as causing damage to the plane and the airport. Phil ends up traveling to Texas to a special prison run by Wilson Fisk, of all people, and it houses a bunch of mutants. And among these mutants, they have all are just a lot of the X-Men, essentially, and they have all been mutilated in different ways to keep them from using their powers. So we have Scott Summers, whose eyes were essentially taken out so that he couldn't use his powers, and it's disgusting. Then we have Kitty Pryde, who tried to phase her way out, but her powers were kind of like messing up. She ended up getting stuck and dying, so her ghost body is kind of just sitting there, and they play with it. Like, they stick their hand and other objects through the bars and just like stick them through her body because she's a ghost now. But she also still can't leave. Then we have Kurt Wagner, who is killing himself by eating himself. He is eating his own tail, as you can see. He is eating himself, and essentially he's gonna just end up dying from eating himself. We have Quicksilver, who is... they cut off all 4 of his limbs, so he doesn't have any arms, he doesn't have any legs, and he can't use any of his powers. Then we just have people there who are mutilated and can't use their powers in any way, shape, or form. So then he goes, after leaving the prison. Now, while he is at the prison, he is having a conversation with Wilson Fisk, and the only reason that he is able to view the prison is because President X knows that Phil is dying and allows him to have like his dying man's last wish. Basically, that is the only reason that he is even allowed to be in there. So after leaving the prison, he goes and he talks to Ben Grimm, and we get a glimpse in what happened to the Fantastic Four. So of course it was Reed Richards, Sue, and Johnny Storm, but Ben did not want to pilot the ship because of safety concerns, so that led Reed Richards to hiring Victor Von Doom. So all of the things that would have happened to the Fantastic Four happened to them, but instead of them like getting the powers and becoming a hero team, they all ended up dying in incredibly like disturbing ways. So all of them that have their powers, so they all have their powers. Reed Richards was stretched uncontrollably and he died. Johnny was on fire and died. I can't remember, like you can see her body in the picture, but Sue died, and then of course Victor Von Doom died. So after having this conversation with Ben, Phil decides that he's going to go ahead and write his book, which he's going to title The Marvels. However, he notices that he has run out of the medication that he was given, which was actually preventing him from dying. So what happened at the Daily Bugle was Peter Parker tried to basically get powers by letting an irradiated spider bite him, but what it did, as you can see, is give him a like very infectious rash all over his body, which he passed on to his other coworkers at the Daily Bugle, including Phil. And now that he doesn't have that medication anymore, the virus spreads quickly, the rash appears very quickly and suddenly, and he dies from this virus, and his papers are just going like scattered in the wind, and nobody really cares that he is dying on the street or has died on the street because everybody kind of just passes it by. Before Phil died, he did also go to a carnival and he saw Johnny Blaze commit suicide by setting his head on fire during an act. And after his death, we do get throughout the series, we do get glimpses at other people who are here in this universe. So we have Mr. Donald, or Dr. Donald Blake, who thinks that he is the entity Thor. However, as I said in the beginning, Thor's hammer is found at the site of the Quinjet explosion from the Patriot missile. So it's safe to say that he's just crazy and that we're talking about two completely different people. The Bobier twins, which would be Jean-Marie and Jean-Paul, Aurora and North Star, are homeless and attached at the elbow, and Jean-Marie actually does not know that her brother is dead, so she's quite literally carrying around her brother's dead body. We then have Warren Worthington III, who is Angel, who is serving President X because he wants to keep his mutant powers a secret. We have Bucky, Jack Monroe, and Victor Creed, who are part of a fascist cannibalistic militia out in Oklahoma. And then we have Matt Murdock, who was killed as a child when what would have turned him into Daredevil by making him blind. Those chemicals actually ended up killing him. Doctor Strange, who started the Avengers, is missing. Hawkeye gets decapitated for being part of the Avengers. And then we have Amora, who is the Enchantress. She is a porn star who is accused of killing her manager with magic. And then we also have Princess Python, who is performing illegal acts with snakes, which is actually really gross. Then we have T'Challa being imprisoned for his participation with the Black Panther Party. Be serious. We have Emma Frost, who owns the Church of the Next Generation, and she legally adopts the children of her followers and performs surgery and experiments on them to unlock their psychic abilities. Basically torture. Then we have Galactus, who is thought to be a god through media. So everybody in media thought that he was God. His body, his deceased corpse, is floating around, and they actually have a picture of it as floating around near Mars. Last but not least, we have the Scarlet Witch. I mentioned her earlier before as being part of the Avengers, and she is actually the reason that the Avengers were killed with a Patriot missile, because she turned in state's evidence against them and had them all murdered. And she's just out. She's outside. She is outside. And that's essentially what happened to a majority of the characters. Like, you know, the main bunch of characters that we all know and love. So what are we thinking exactly? Well, I really do like this story, and of course, I really like dark things. If you asked anybody, I am in love with violence, serial killers, Saw, things like that. Anyway, that's besides the point. I thought this story was really well written. I absolutely love the art, and I could definitely tell like there were some similarities between this and Kingdom Come, with both of them being about a year apart, with Ruins coming out first in 1995, Kingdom Come coming out in 1996, and the artwork for both of them is absolutely spectacular and unique to those stories. And another thing that I noticed that was very similar was how society acted when it came to the situation with these superhero beings and how the government was acting. So while the government in Kingdom Come was not actively like trying to kill everybody or imprison these people or anything like that, they did express the fact that they were tired of basically being told what to do by superpowered people. And then at the end of all things, when that whole entire fight broke out and happened, they decided to send that nuclear strike to just end it all because they were, tired of this entire situation. However, in this situation, the government is absolutely 100% corrupt thanks to President X, who, if you haven't figured it out, is Charles Xavier. And he is basically he's looking for any and every reason to put superpowered people under his control. So he's 100% a twisted version of himself, but Charles Xavier on 616 is already twisted anyway. So it was just like advanced twisting at this point in time. And I absolutely loved the writing for this because the government had absolutely no problem being corrupt and killing these people, and even setting them up in a society where it really doesn't matter what the fuck y'all are doing because nobody cares whether or not you are dying in the street or whatever. But like, it was set up that way, and it ended up with all of these crazy deaths and like bodies just being sprung everywhere. And he is sitting on top of it. Was almost as Superman was talking to Magog and was like, this is basically what you created with your new generation. At the same time, here we have President X has created this dystopia, like this like horrible place, by being the most corrupt version of himself and allowing these things to happen and not really caring because he's the one who holds power. Is that not insane? And it's just really good writing. And I 100% thoroughly enjoyed what was going through everybody's minds. You could see the hopeless expressions and the sadness, especially when it came to Ben Grimm and Captain Marvel. Like, everybody was just in turmoil. Now, this is not to say that I love to see all of them suffer or anything like that. It's just interesting to see how these different people who are, for lack of a better term, generally happy, be in just absolute chaos and just a state of miserable all the time. Scarlet Witch, though, I felt her. I kind of felt her, not really, because that whole entire situation, and whether at this point in time they are mutants because it's 1995. So in 1995, they are considered mutants. So at this point, she is fearing for her life as a mutant. Why Charles Xavier is turning on mutants is very odd to me. And it's never explained. And I think that's another thing that I like, is like, it's shrouded in mystery why President X, who is also a mutant, is acting like this. But anyway, Scarlet Witch turning state's evidence because she did not want to be locked up and mutilated with the rest of the mutants, but she allowed her brother to be done that way. And something tells me that something is not quite right in her mind, because you as a mutant and your brother also as a mutant, you would have to know that he is going or has been through this exact thing, and you didn't try to help or negotiate or anything like that. We don't see anything other than the fact that she's scared for her life as a mutant and not to necessarily care, she doesn't really care much about her brother's life, who was also a mutant. at that time. But let's make note that she's no longer a mutant, and neither is he. Okay, but I really think that this is a really, really great story. It's a great darkness to the story. And while there are some darker there are some dark timelines and there are some dark Earths, this story in and of itself is, I think, where the rest of the Marvel universe gets its darkness from. And that's saying a lot, because this place is horrific. So how are you feeling? As your doctor, I highly recommend taking both doses and seeing how you feel afterwards. And just making sure that you are staying cautious of those side effects. Now that you have gotten an overview and kind of just my opinion on the entire situation, is this the right medicine for you? I think it is. I think you'll thoroughly enjoy taking both doses. When it comes to the characters that I did mention, I'm going to give them to you in mini doses, because some of the characters, including like Scarlet Witch and Iron Man, Hawkeye, Captain America, others, they all have like kind of small biographies that are maybe a minute or so long and are kind of like direct contributions to the story. And I thought it would be very, very fun if I just did those for you guys in mini doses, aka shorts, here on the channel. So if you guys check onto the playlist for Ruins specifically, there should be some shorts, and I'll just do them periodically for this as well. And again, while X-Men 97 is on, you guys are getting mutant content from me. And that's actually one of the reasons I wanted to go ahead and do Ruins, because Ruins is mainly, while it's mainly about the Marvel Universe as a whole, the state of the Marvel Universe in this particular story is controlled by a mutant, a powerful one. And a lot of mutants are in the story that have like something to contribute to the story as well. So I wanted to go ahead and give you that as well. So thank you again for coming back to the doctor's office, and we will check in again with you when it's time for you to get another dose of just what the doctor ordered. Bye.